Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to the sixth annual Micro Four Third Photography's Meetup. I'm so proud to have five special guests with me today. They have a tremendous wealth of information on Micro Four Thirds on their channels and have been big supporters over the years. And I'm really very privileged and honored to have them with me today. And I'm sure many of you know them, from YouTube. I have their channel links down below in case you haven't seen them before for some reason, if that's possible. But I greatly admire and respect all of the work that they've done over the last few years, and I wanted to have them back again this year. And one of the interesting things is there's so many new channels out there shooting Micro Four Thirds now. I think it's a testament to the robustness and strength of the format. And I'm a big fanboy of Micro Four Thirds, so I'm always going to be very positive. But I am very excited about the future for Micro Four Thirds, and it's going to be always my everyday camera. Despite all of the other formats and systems out there, it's really been the best fit and match for the kind of photography that I do, and I'm sure many of you as well. So, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in our guests here in just a moment, and we'll just do a brief introduction. So let's see. Sorry, I'm a little rusty doing multi-person stream, but let me see what I can do. There's Peter.
Hello.
And we have a new person this year, Brian, the Micro Four Thirds guy, and there's Matti Sulanto and Robin Wong.
Hey.
Awesome. And then we also have Ben Chappell. Hey Ben, how's it going?
Good.
So let me start with Peter there, right here next to me.
Hello, everyone.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and, and what we should know about you.
I don't know what's new, but if you don't know me, I'm Peter Forsgard, a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And I mainly do video nowadays, but I like to call myself a photographer. And at the moment, I'm very happy and lucky that I have time to do some of my own projects and mainly street photography and all that type of photography.
Yeah, and you have a tremendous Facebook group and lots of members there posting, and you're setting up your 52-week projects. And I think you're doing so much to encourage people to get out there and shoot. And that's one of the most things I admire about you, because that's a lot of work. And you wouldn't do it if you didn't have a passion for photography and helping others. So I really appreciate the work you're doing there for the community.
Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I think that's the thing, because we all have nice cameras and stuff, but I think the most important thing is to go out and photograph. And the 52 assignment is just one way of getting inspired. And some people like to post them on the Facebook group, and some just use it for their own inspiration and go out by themselves to have a good start to photograph. That's probably the main thing on that.
Yeah, and there's some amazing images there posted by your followers there. So I certainly look to it for the inspiration myself. And then we have Brian here today, Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing?
Pretty brave, committing to that channel name, right? Calling yourself Micro Four Thirds guy.
Yeah, I was called it a few years ago, and it just seemed to have a nice ring. Then I found out there was a Nikon guy or Nikon guy in the States as well, which I missed that. So,
so you went with Nikon.
So I've made my bed to lie on it.
But Brian, your channel, I guess, how long have you been on YouTube now?
About 3.5 years. But
okay. Yeah. So relatively new, I guess. I mean, I really didn't catch your channel until about 2 years ago, and just kind of on and off sporadically. But again, you're really producing amazing content for the Micro Four Thirds community. Focusing on the kind of things you're doing with your camera, and some of the features that they have, and then some bargain bin type stuff, right? Some gems out there to help Micro Four Thirds users save some money. So tell us a little bit about yourself and something we should know about you.
Well, I'm based in Cumbria in the northwest of England. I was professional photographer. I used always as a second business, but I was professional. I was also a press officer for a couple of charities, which I did a lot of photography for them. And as a professional, I did mainly school portraits, portrait work for families, and corporate. And I retired officially during the COVID lockdowns because I just, like a lot of people, just lost the audience, unfortunately. But that gave me the
Yeah.
opportunity to get into YouTube.
Wow. That's awesome. And did you say you were doing some charity work or volunteer work there?
I did some. I was a press officer for an organisation called the Air Cadets, the Air Training Corps, which is part of the Royal Air Force for youth in the UK, for the northwest region of Cumbria. And again, I did the same thing for Rotary International. So I've done press officer for both of them. And that got me into taking press photography sort of style photos. The only thing I detest vehemently is taking weddings. Please don't ask me to do a wedding.
Yeah, you and me both. I would never do a wedding. I mean, I've done a couple for friends just for free, but I couldn't imagine actually being accountable for the photos that I took. But that's awesome. So I just that's the sense I got when I watch your channels. You're another person that is passionate about photography and looking to help others enjoy the craft as much as you do. So thank you so much for that.
I think for a long time I felt a little bit odd because I'd fairly well self-taught, and you do an awful lot of learning, and you worry in case you're getting it wrong. Then you get in touch with other people, and they say, no, try this or try that, and you can learn so much just from other people rather than reading books or whatever, and it can really project you. And that's what I try to do with other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so Maddie. Maddie is one of those photographers that I've come to respect over time, because I never, honestly, in the very beginning, I didn't appreciate the kind of work you were doing until I grew more as a photographer and really started to understand what it is you were doing. And you have such a breadth of photography knowledge. A lot of it went over my head, believe it or not. But you do communicate at a very basic level to share those ideas, I think. But behind those, what seem relatively simple or basic concepts is such a deep understanding about photography. And that's why, like, even though you shoot, like many of us, we shoot multiple different format cameras, but you've always had micro four thirds. You've always put it on the same plane as every other piece of gear that you use. You've never said that, this is better than the other. And that's because I think what you do on your channel, and this is just my impression, it sort of transcends gear in general, but is more about doing photography at fundamental level, and that's and the kind of things that you put out, I really think is a great asset to the photographic community abroad. And that's why I wanted to bring you in, because I just have I'm always impressed by particularly your opinion type videos and commentary. They've always been very, just excellent is the best way I can put it. So those are my words about you. Tell me in your own words about yourself and what you think people should know.
Thanks for those kind words. I don't know if I can add anything. You said it all already. Okay, seriously. I've been in photography for a long time, for almost 50 years, and I have a long commercial career behind me. But these days I run my YouTube channel. I'm a recreational photographer, no more commercial work, and I try to share what I know about cameras and photography on my channel, and I try not to embrace any particular camera brand or camera system on my channel. I think judging by the comments lately, many people think I hate Micro Four Thirds because I made a video a while back where I sort of said some things to why I think Micro Four Thirds is not doing so well. But the truth is that I love every format, every camera brand. And,
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing that, and really, you didn't say anything that was wrong. It's just your opinion, right?
Yes.
And it's more about, and it's one of the topics we're going to talk about today, specifically, is probably related to that video. But that, those are always fun to watch anyway. Okay, great. So, and then Robin, Robin, I've unlike Maddie, I've always liked you from the start.
Oh, ouch!
Because
Thank you.
You just have like this enthusiasm and contagious enthusiasm. And I've said this from the beginning. You're like the happiest photographer on earth, and it's
you don't know Robin.
Maybe he's a good actor.
That's true.
Maybe.
We only see the YouTube side of Robin, right? We don't see him like Maddie's been there.
Yes, Matti knows a lot.
Matter of fact, is that why you went to Australia, Maddie? Is because to get away from Robin?
Running away from Robin Wong.
Yeah, there is a reason why I came here. Yes.
I see. now it all makes sense. But and again, you've been an amazing, I guess, creator for Micro Four Thirds and supporter, and it's always been your primary source for both your recreational and professional work, like myself. And so we have that in common. We prefer the Micro Four Thirds format for all of the things that we know it's good at. And but I think your greatest strength really is showing that enthusiasm for photography and getting people out there and shooting, and just with the same message. The gear doesn't matter, if Micro Four Thirds makes you happy, shoot with it, and ultimately that is the end goal, right? So that's sort of my 2 cents about what I think about you. But tell us in your own words what we should know about you.
First of all, thank you so much, Rob, for having me. I am so happy to be here and very privileged to be among these amazing photographers and content creators. And yes, I've always believed in enjoying photography, taking your camera out and having fun. I call it shutter therapy, and I genuinely have therapy when I go out and shoot. And that positive feeling that we get after we get the amazing shots is just, man, it stays with you. I just want people to go out and shoot. Yeah, that's pretty much what I want to spread on my main channel.
Yes, and you do it very well.
Thank you.
Like I said, it's always fun to watch your videos and the kind of images you create, and I've never been able to not smile after watching one of your videos. It's like, good job, Robin.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Thank you.
But anyway, we have Ben Chappell here. I can never get your last name right, because I ask you, how do you pronounce your last name? And you say, it doesn't matter, Chappell or Chappell.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Ben is, I would say, has had one of the biggest impacts on my photography, because he's gotten me into deep sky astrophotography with my Olympus gear, something that a lot of people would just assume would be the worst format to choose for astrophotography, and it's actually probably one of the best. And Ben, I think by your background is in engineering, and you're also an educator. You teach at a school, and or have taught, I should say. And I think the work you've put out for astrophotographers in general, because you go beyond Micro Four Thirds gear, you also have, you know, all the heavy duty, like you're a lifetime astrophotographer, you know, not a backyard guy like I am. And I think it's an aspect of the Micro Four Thirds community that you've had the most impact on both myself and the community in general. And I encourage everyone into astrophotography, definitely check out a lot of the work that Ben has done with different types of Micro Four Thirds gear and deep sky astrophotography. And it's not as hard as I thought. I mean, it's a little work up front. And certainly there's a lot of tools out there that can automate everything if you have the money. But I think it's good that, well, to start at a basic level to understand the fundamentals of deep sky astrophotography. And this is something that Ben does a lot of on his channel, is helping you to understand those fundamentals and how to use Micro Four Thirds gear. And I encourage you to visit his channel, but I also have a playlist of Micro Four Thirds specific gear from his channel on my channel that will just link back to his. You know, it's just a big circle, right? But anyway, Ben, that's what I can say. That really, I think that is one of the biggest contributions I've had, or that you've made for the Micro Four Thirds community. But again, that's just my impression. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Tell us in your own words about yourself and what we should know about you.
So let's see. When I was a teenager, I got my start into professional photography, and I did mostly weddings, schools, so forth. I did that for 12 years. I did not gain any gray hair from that, though I should have. And then, of course, in college, as a graduate student, I taught the photography class clear up to senior year for senior year students, and so that's kind of where I got a lot of my technical expertise. And I was a school photographer too for about 2 years. And then after that, let's see here. Nowadays, I'm basically an engineer in this essence. I draw on CAD all day long. I design exhibit booths and so forth. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I've always been into astrophotography. It's actually what got me into photography to begin with, way back in the film days. And what I did was I got frustrated with the fact that on YouTube there was absolutely no content out there for Olympus, and no content for narrowband imaging, and there was no content for processing your images on the Mac. And so I made a channel that focuses on those 3 topics. I try to focus on those 3 topics, and that's what I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. And then last year, of course, I got diagnosed with cancer, and I was actually really close to death. You go back and look at the videos. I look like walking death, and I am beating it so far. They still don't know what kind of cancer it is, though. And the only unfortunate thing about the cancer thing is that it really has reduced the number of hours that I can do doing things, because every other week I'm basically in bed sick from the chemo, and I also haven't been able to buy any new gear.
That's but we all wish you, and from the bottom of our hearts, you know, the best recovery from that, and we look forward to many more years of your contributions to both the Micro Four Thirds community, but also at home with your family. Those are the most important things in life, and I appreciate you being here today. I know it could have been tough for you, but I do appreciate it. So definitely check out Ben's channel for that. For the Astro stuff, and he also has a video that talks specifically about some of the challenges he's faced with his diagnosis, and it's a good watch, I think, for those, because I think all of us, especially at our age, have been touched by this kind of thing in our lives, and it's just a fact of life, like everything else. So. But let's end on a high note here. It's good to see you, and thanks everyone here for being here. Now, what I want to talk about, and Maddie touched on this in one of his videos, and I think all of us at some point have touched on this, whether briefly in a live stream or just in general, a dedicated video. But you know, we all love the Micro Four Thirds format, of course, for all of the obvious reasons. You know, size, weight, etc. We don't really need to go into that so much, but what I wanted to talk about really is, and I'd like each of you to give me your 2 cents on this, is what's your opinion of how Micro Four Thirds can expand their market share? Because I think it's really unfortunate, that it's like at 4% on some charts, 12% on others, but it's just a fraction of what other formats are enjoying collectively. And I think that's a real shame. And we'll start with you, Peter. What do you think Micro Four Thirds can do to expand their market share, to the world, really?
Well, I would say that it doesn't have to be the market share that gets bigger. They just have to make better profit on the market share that they have. That's another way of doing it. And of course, innovating new things. That's one thing. And then especially OM System should have better video features in their cameras, because that was the main reason that I actually left Micro Four Thirds and using Fuji now, because it has better video qualities, and I am doing professional videography most of my work, so that was the reason. And I think that is one thing. And they do have Micro Four Thirds cameras, like Panasonic has a lot better video quality in their cameras, so maybe doing some cooperation with Panasonic and get that stuff into OM System cameras, and I think that would be a thing, because there are some things that are really good, like the IBIS and the AF on videos. It's really good in OM System and Olympus cameras. So, but they're lacking some other stuff that's crucial. So I hope that they improve on that. So maybe I'll hop on back on the Micro Four Thirds wagon if they do that. Don't know.
Right. Well, from the beginning, I think OM Systems particularly has always been about photography, and they've never beefed up their video skill set, in-house, not like Panasonic has. Now, Panasonic, of course, has always been about video and has a huge following and a lot of enthusiasts for that. And in fact, I think they were the number one camera for video across all formats for a while. I'm not sure where they stand today, but I think very recently they're still in the top number 1 or number 2 spot. But yeah, video definitely, they should do something, because there is, obviously it's taking over. On the Sony side, it's like their number 1 selling camera are video centric, right? They're vlogging cameras. And OM Systems, for me, I'm happy with just program mode, for video. And even for my professional work, the 420 10-bit is enough for what I need to do. But certainly there's another level of videography that people need to do. And if you're going to release a flagship camera, it needs to check those boxes, I think, on the video side.
I agree.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't care if the EM10 doesn't have, 420 10-bit, it can just be, natural color profile. It doesn't need all that. And honestly, for most people, I think program mode is fine for video, but like you say, the flagship camera, needs to check these boxes. So I think that's a very, very solid point about at least on the OM System side of, beefing up their video specs and quality as well, because even though they have the specs, the same specs on another camera, the quality's probably still not quite there from the tests that I've seen. But okay, that's awesome. How about you, Brian? What do you think? How do you feel about the Micro Four Thirds market share, and do they need to expand it? And if so, how?
Well, I think for me, I think they've lost the direction to a large extent, because I got into Micro Four Thirds from Canon. I've been shooting Canon professionally. It was wonderful kit, but big, chunky, and heavy. And I'm getting older, and I think we need the emphasis more on some of the smaller cameras, but with high-tech features in. We seem to have lost that side of it. My favorite camera of all is a GX8. But I've got G9s, I've got EM1, cameras, and they are great cameras, but they're big and heavy, and they're trying to compete with the full frame. But I think it's a wrong market to compete with, personally, because I think you're not going to beat them. They can always beat you on overall picture quality and specs. But I think some of the problem that we have is instead of facing towards a full frame, we need to be facing towards getting people off the mobile phones and into Micro Four Thirds that way. And Micro Four Thirds is almost a unique format because you can go from literally from an entry level point and shoot camera all the way up to a fully fledged professional camera, which will give you incredible results. So that's the big thing for me on there. But also, I think they need to stop trying to compete on numbers. We're never going to get the super high megapixel counts for full frame. So why are we taking it on there? We were, as a format, the Micro Four Thirds format was really inspirational at first by having some fantastic technology, built-in IBIS and incredibly quick autofocus when the rest were catching up, and we've lost that advantage to me. So I think that's where I'd be putting the pressure on if I was them, and I think that's probably a bigger market to tap into.
Yeah, definitely. Innovation is sort of one of the trademarks of Micro Four Thirds early on, and even up until recently, like the EM1X, I believe, was the first camera to have subject detect. Birds, cars. So there was still some innovation, but yeah, it's not. The competition is very quick to catch up if anything comes out, and surpass very quickly. But there's still some things that I think get overlooked, like the live comp and the in-camera focus stacking and the high-res shot modes. These features, I think, are so well implemented in the Micro Four Thirds system that better than any other system. And like many of our guests here, I have everything, right? But none of them overall work as well as a Micro Four Thirds camera when it's doing the same thing.
And all in the one package too.
Yeah, all in one camera, right? And that's where, yeah, I agree with you that it would be nice to see, like, what is going to be the next leap or technology that they can put into a Micro Four Thirds camera that's going to be like, yeah, take that, right?
Well, also the thing on the small cameras, we've seen nothing. We've had the things like the GX9, which has been out for a long time. Lots of rumors about what's happening to that. We've got all the Pen series on Olympus, or OM systems, shall I say, but there doesn't seem to be any big movement on there. And I think that's a big loss of market, because to me, it's the bridge to get people into photography in the first place, to get them away from just a point and shoot phone. We don't have the point and shoot cameras anymore because mobile phones do it so well, but there must be something to encourage somebody to pick up a camera and want to find out what everything does. And I think Micro Four Thirds is the ideal way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it would be nice because all the other camera systems are doing it. You can walk into a store and you can start at any price point and get anything, right? But it seems like with Micro Four Thirds, at least currently what's on the shelf, you have to kind of go back many years to find, small light camera, and certainly nothing modern like a brand new Pen or GX9, for example, like you're talking about. And I would love to see, hopefully they have the financial robustness to be able to develop these kind of cameras again, because they were certainly, they, even though it wasn't my first camera was like an EM10 Mark II, but I still wanted to get a Pen, because it's smaller, and there's a certain amount of like satisfaction of just like having an everyday camera. You don't have to take out the big bulky one all the time. You can just take out a little pocket camera, but still enjoy all of the benefits of the high quality sensor and high quality lenses, and image quality in a very, very small package. And that's definitely, I think, an area that they should try to get back into if they can.
Well, I was out with the GX1 yesterday with a little Lumix 12 to 32 on, fitted in the pocket, and had space left, and it was giving me great fun.
Yeah, that 12 to 32 is an awesome little pancake zoom, and very sharp, and I use it all the time on my Pen F. Actually, it's a terrific lens. Okay, thank you. And Maddie, how do you feel Micro Four Thirds should expand their market, or can they? I know you've talked about this before, but please share it with our viewers here.
I agree with Brian. They should go back to their roots and start making small and compact again. And especially OM systems should start creating some real new products. They are about to release another zoom lens soon, which is actually a full frame lens with a micro four thirds mount. It's not exactly convincing, and it's not exactly embracing the small size or the uniqueness of the system. Sure enough, you get more reach with the smaller sensor, but still, I mean, it's pretty lame, in my opinion, a little bit hilarious and pathetic at the same time. And Panasonic has done a little bit better. They have released some really new cameras lately. The GX9 Mark II, had a chance to play with one lately, and it was a really nice camera to use. And one thing that was, in my opinion, mistake for at the start, that the Panasonic and Olympus cameras or OM system cameras, they are fully compatible, or the lenses and cameras. It's not a standard really, it's a common mount, but there are some features that are not cross compatible. And it's also, in my opinion, at least in this market situation, it's a bad mistake, but probably not possible to rectify anymore, because there are so many lenses and cameras out there already. But I think small and compact, in my opinion, would be the way to go, like exactly what Brian said.
Yeah. Like I said, I would love to see it, and I would certainly buy a small compact camera if they release one. And I think it's interesting that Panasonic and OM Systems or Olympus never really made their lenses 100% compatible with each other. And I'm convinced, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but this is one of the reasons, you went to Fuji, is because if you have to go in, it's going into Panasonic, it's almost like going into a whole brand new system. It's not, even though it's still micro four thirds, you really, to get the most out of it, you have to buy all new Panasonic lenses and gear and learn a new menu system. And if you're just going to get a whole new system, get something that you feel is even a better fit than Panasonic may have been in your case.
Yep, exactly.
Because certainly, we just talked about how great video is for Panasonic, but then you went with Fuji, right? But as Maddie's pointing out, it's really still like getting a whole brand new system, even though it's Panasonic. Now, I'll use Panasonic lenses that, where it doesn't really matter that it's not 100% compatible, because I don't need to use the features that it would need to be. But things like, dual sync IBIS, right? Being able to use the IBIS in the lens from Panasonic on an Olympus body, that would make a huge difference in I think people's buying decisions for additional gear, focus stacking, all the little things, special features that may or may not work on either camera. So, yeah, I think that would be a really nice thing. And then going back to smaller cameras, those two things you point out, Maddie, I think are definitely things that are missing today in the micro four thirds market. So thank you for that. And Robin, how do you feel micro four thirds can expand their market share, and what do they need to do, if anything?
I think it is still not too late for both Panasonic and OM Digital Solutions to really sit down together and put their brains together, work together more closely, and come up with fantastic products, share the technologies, and really just put their R&D resources together. Micro Four Thirds is very small now. I think they are the smallest they've ever been. Previously, we have had cameras that's from Olympus that's at #1 in Japan, and Olympus as a mirrorless in Japan has always been #1 for like 5 or 6 years straight. They were very proud, and this proved that there is a market for micro four thirds. And if really, I just don't understand why Panasonic and Olympus, well now OM system, they are in the same format, micro four thirds. They're supposed to be working together, but they seem like they are competing against each other. So it's such a small space already, and you shouldn't be fighting. You should be fighting against other people, right? There are bigger boys, there are bigger problems out there. So if they can really just come together and come up with really compelling products, I think Matti and Brian have already said it. We want smaller cameras, but with really awesome features. And we don't need to be the best. We don't need to beat the full frame cameras in terms of resolution, dynamic range, and high ISO. Physics is physics, but we need some compelling products. We need some progress in technology. It just seems that in some parts, the hardware, they have stagnated, like in terms of image quality. They're not really getting any better in the past 5 or 6 years. We want to see some progress. We want to see some innovation. And yeah, I think there is a future, but they just need to work together. And we've talked about the incompatibility issues, like one lens from Panasonic is not really working well on Olympus because you can't use the aperture ring, and then the zooms are turning the other way. If I'm using Olympus zoom lens, if I switch lens to Panasonic, it turns the other way. Like, what's up with that? It should be fully compatible. And the DFD is not working on Olympus, or if you use Olympus lens, sorry, Panasonic lens, you don't have a pro capture mode, like all this, and a dual IS, like all these compatibility issues, they should be ironed out and make the system more seamless, right? Or Panasonic and Olympus systems just join forces and form one company, you know? And that will maybe save the system. I don't know. Just a wild suggestion.
Wow. I wouldn't be surprised if like a third-party financial investor like JIP did would say, okay, Panasonic, I'll buy your piece, and JIP, I'll buy your piece.
Yeah.
Or JIP, right, might just buy Panasonic's piece and work together. That would be interesting. I mean, that's huge speculation, but I think definitely they don't have to go that far. They can start to collaborate now if they want to,
Yes.
right?
It's not too
Many
late.
big industries do that already, like Mazda and Toyota. You know, they share factories together and build basically the same cars and share technology. Certainly, Panasonic and OM Systems can do something like that. Yeah, definitely more collaboration. You know, they will be a stronger force in the market together, you know, working together rather than separately. So
For sure.
be interesting to see like a joint venture camera, maybe, right? With all this amazing feature. That would be something. Call it a Pan OM or OM Pan, whoever you know wants to go first. Yeah, that's definitely a very valid point, and I think a lot of people would agree with that as well. So how about you, Ben? How do you feel about Micro Four Thirds and what they can do to expand their market share?
I have some pretty strong opinions about this.
Good.
So first off, I think they should change the format's name. Micro Four Thirds, when you translate that into layman's terms, it says tiny format. And when Olympus was 4/3, no one ever complained about the size of the format. And it's not the smallest format out there. Yet since they changed the name to Micro Four Thirds, which again means tiny format, when you translate it into English, layman's terms, everybody, you know, tiny right now is bad. So I think it should be called Mirrorless 4/3. You wouldn't even have to change the moniker. It would still be MFT. And it would actually describe what the format is. It's a mirrorless system. And that's what differentiates it from the 4/3 system of the past, is the fact that it's mirrorless. So that's my first thing. I mean, that would be the easiest change. The other one is look at the history of the market shares of cameras. So digital, when it came into being through the late 90s and even clear up to 2010, it was inferior in quality to film. You could scan film and get a vastly sharper image than you could with digital. Okay. But digital absolutely kicked film out of the industry. And the reason it did it is because from when you took the picture to when you consumed the image or, you know, distributed it, used it, however, digital shortened that gap. And in the past 10 years, I haven't seen any effort by the manufacturers to try to continue to shorten that gap. The cell phone has. You can take the image and then instantly share it from the same device. cameras need to have this ability. We need to have FTP abilities to like put our images onto the cloud. I mean, there's no reason why this camera, which has Wi-Fi in it, shouldn't be able to share to Instagram or email or text message an image. You know, I've been to the park and I've seen photographers get their cell phone out and take a picture of the screen and share it that way because it's easier than using the app.
Yeah.
So they need to shorten the gap from like, because right now, like if I take a picture with my camera, I have to take the card out of the camera. I have to find a dongle for my laptop. I have to stick it in the laptop. I have to download them, and then I have to put them into my raw editor and then export them and then share it. That's too much work. That's too many steps. So they need to shorten the number of steps that it takes from taking the image to sharing the image, because this generation is all about instant gratification. We want the image now. We want to be able to share the image right away. And then, of course, I would also like echo the video. They need to concentrate on the video, and they need to look at sections of the market that the cell phone cannot compete in. Astrophotography is obviously one of those. Astrophotography in the last 15 years has grown by a factor of 100. There are 100 more astrophotographers today than there were 15 years ago. And that's an exploding section of photography. Same thing with video. Video is a growing, there are more people doing video today than there was 15 years ago. Because 15 years ago, you had to get big 3-chip cameras that you sat on your shoulder. And that has kind of all passed away, and now it's more accessible to people. Therefore, video is a growing section of the market. You know, general photography is not growing. Okay, and if they would focus on, you know, finding elements of the market that are growing and introducing feature sets for those sections, then they would be able to increase their market share. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. So the takeaway I'm getting is like the optics of the name is hurting it overall, and the workflow, right? The simplifying the workflow, because I get it. I mean, there are people that like, what's an SD card? You know, what do you mean I need a laptop or a computer? I just have my iPad or my phone. You know, how am I going to get images out without a computer, right? So that's definitely a workflow issue. I think, you know, software companies would have to keep up as well. I know Lightroom has Lightroom CC or something. I've never used it, but they're talking about that replacing, you know, the Lightroom Classic that I use, which is, you know, laptop or PC based versus, you know, an app. So hopefully maybe a software solution is there in the future where Lightroom will just tether to your phone better than the manufacturer's own app can, right? Because a lot of people use tethering software from other companies rather than the one given by the manufacturer, if it exists. You know, I'm just thinking outside the box a little bit here, but I feel like it's going to be more of a third-party solution than in-house. It's just not their area. Because if it was, they would have done it by now. And certainly video specs and astrophotography, those are growing fields. And if they can present a camera that excels even more so in either of those areas, you know, imagine, you know, a Panasonic camera that adds some amazing astro features, you know, like pixel shifting for star tracking or, you know, whatever else they need to be. Because in OM systems, upping up their video specs, because it's already a pretty awesome astro camera, particularly the OM1, for long exposures. What I noticed was even a 10 or 15 second exposure on my older cameras, you know, EM1 Mark II, EM5 Mark III, after about 10 or 15 seconds, there is so much like heat noise, speckles and things in the image. Whereas the OM1, you know, I can shoot a full minute and there's hardly any speckles in the image. You know, somehow it handles that heat noise or is resistant to it for whatever reason. But, you know, the point being is that there's certainly a very strong astrophotography case for the OM1. I saw a big improvement going from my Pen F, say, to the OM1 when I was doing my Astro and processing the images, and just adding a few features like red lighted buttons, a red mode, the things that we talked about last year, a wish list for astrophotographers, and it wouldn't be hard, right? Just a few firmware updates,
Yeah,
so
most of
I
it
think-
would be through firmware that you could greatly increase the capabilities of these cameras for either video or for astrophotography.
Yeah.
Video
Yeah.
is just adding different formats that people want to raw edit, and then for
Right, and it's
astrophotography,
definitely some features I think a lot of people would pick up a Micro Four Thirds camera with just a few, if it just had a few little things in it for astrophotographers, that they're looking for. So
especially
anyhow,
when you take into account the cost of filters, because filtration has revolutionized astrophotography, and big filters cost a lot more money. They when you double the size of a filter, the cost goes up by a factor of 4. And so the smaller format really comes in handy for that.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons Micro Four Thirds is an awesome format for deep sky astrophotography. When intuitively you would think everybody wants to shoot a full frame to reduce noise, and we're far from it, right? That's the exact opposite. The larger sensors generate more noise, because of the
And
long.
most telescopes don't fit a 35mm sensor.
Right, and the format, right? The workflow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's great. You guys have all given some really awesome ideas here for the Micro Four Thirds community to look for and to push, and for the manufacturers, I think, to seriously consider. Obviously we don't have access to market data on a broad general basis, but it's not just us here. These are things that I keep hearing and reading about over and over again in the forums, in my own comment sections, emails I get from users. All of these things are certainly things that I think would definitely expand their market share, if not a little, but quite a bit in some cases. So, okay. What I'd like to do now is kind of segue into more photography related type topics, where I want to make this more productive for the general viewer, right? Because I think we've all established, at least for us, that Micro Four Thirds is as good a format as any if you want to do photography, right? If you just want to get out there and improve your photography, any camera will do, and certainly Micro Four Thirds, I think, is at a minimum is expandable to any level of photography that you want to get into. There's really no limits with the Micro Four Thirds system, being an interchangeable lens system, and having the smallest sensor gives it all the size and weight advantages. And it's a very mature system with all of the lenses, and they're excellent. I've never been disappointed by any lens I've bought from Micro Four Thirds line, especially in my case, I prefer Olympus, but I am enjoying some of the Panasonic lenses now. The 25 1.4 Leica. I'm gonna get very shortly the 15mm 1.7. But okay. So, Maddie, I think I'm going to start with you on this question, and because you have, I think, a very deep breadth of photography, and you can give a very qualified answer to, do you think, it's worth looking at the masters of photography from the past? I mean, is their work really still relevant in today's world where everybody's just clicking pictures, millions at a time? I forget how many pictures are taken daily. Is their work still relevant and worth looking at, and can we still learn from them? Or, is it just a waste of time and we should just be, flicking through Instagram and looking for inspiration? What do you think? Oh, no sound.
Sorry, I had muted my sound. All right. I definitely think it's worth looking at old masters if we are talking about the 20th century masters like 100 years ago. because great photos are still great no matter when it was shot, and the same fundamentals still apply, like light composition. They are still the same. If it's a good light, it's a good light no matter when the picture was taken. And when it comes to gear, the gear that those photographers used, like say 100 years ago, it was very, very modest compared to what we have today. And when we look at those pictures and realize what they could do with their very, very simple cameras compared to what we have today, it's a good reminder that the gear really doesn't matter. You can create great pictures on any camera.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always impressed with how good the images are from a technical standpoint, not just the aesthetics and the composition and all the things that make a picture iconic, but just looking at the technical things that went into the image. Like I've been studying like Yusuf Karsh, who took the picture of is it Queen Elizabeth and the other guy, I forget his name. That are
Churchill.
on Churchill.
Churchill.
Yeah, thank you. That are on the money, right? The currency. Their photos are on the currency. But if you look at the original images, they're just astounding how they put together the lighting, and also I think you know, if we can look at if they're available, any kind of interviews or documentaries on these photographers, these masters, and learn who they were and what they were thinking, will definitely help you or inspire you and help you to connect with your subject, whether it's a person or a tree. I think that's one of the things that I learned by studying the masters is you need to have some kind of connection, and what you project is what you're going to get back, in your photography. So it's kind of the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. What you put into it, you'll get out of it. And this is one of the lessons I think the masters can teach us.
One more thing.
Yeah.
It's also good to look at those old pictures, so you don't think that something you created today is something unique. It's probably being created already 100 years ago, or something similar, the same idea or the same concept.
Yeah.
So it's, in that sense, it's also good to know a bit about the history or the old masters.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've thought I did something original, and then like a year later, I'm looking at it. This has been done like 1,000 times. I tell you, but yeah, I feel very strongly myself, but nobody's asking me. I want to ask Brian, what do you think about studying masters of photography? Do you think it's still relevant today or not?
Well, I'm quite passionate on this. I think it's extremely relevant. I mean, I've just did a video on George Hurrell and Charles Bull, who did a lot of the black and white shots in the 20s, 30s, 40s from Hollywood. And yes, fair enough, you had some fantastic lighting equipment there, but it's the use of the light, it's the use of the composition, the fact that they're actually using shadows. When an awful lot of people are decrying a photograph these days because it's got a shadow and you can't do that. But it was the whole essence of what came through. And I mean, David Bailey, I got into Olympus cameras because when I was still at school, Bailey was an Olympus ambassador. And I remember seeing a catalogue with David Bailey for Olympus. But I remember watching all the black and white shots, the fantastic high key, high contrast portraits he did. And I was fascinated by them. And the thing that you just said about the photographs looking the same, I'm a great one for not using the technology. I've done a few videos over the time where I'm saying get back to basics, learn about the exposure triangle, learn how exposures work, learn about how to brace the camera rather than just relying on IBIS. Get rid of the technology and get back to the basics and add the technology on. Because what I'm seeing is, I don't know if it's just because we're on social media so much or because the cameras are making the decisions, but an awful lot of photographs look the same to me. And if you can get back to the basics and just put yourself into it, then you're going to get that uniqueness you just said. So yeah, I think from me, you really do have to look back at the masters and some of the techniques. Ansel Adams, for instance, we all have this big push on shallow depth of field, but Ansel Adams was really the pioneer of the sort of F64 super depth of field, and did some fantastic photography. And again, using exposure zones for your exposure, linear exposure. Now you just sort of let the camera do it, maybe put it in different mode, but you don't understand why the camera's doing things. And I think if you can get back to that and then add the technology on, it's going to make you a far better photographer.
Yeah, and I that's really an excellent way to put it is look at the fundamentals, learn photography and then add the technology after the fact, right? After you've kind of established that baseline. So I'm with you and Maddie there on studying the masters. Now, let me just put it out to everyone, specifically Peter and Robin and Ben. Is there any opposing view to studying the masters? Do any of you disagree with that?
No, I totally agree with both of them. And there's one thing about what Brian said about shadows and light. It's usually light is very easy, but those who master the shadows, those are the masters.
Yeah, same here. I pretty much agree with everything Brian and Matti just shared. You can't run away. Great photographs are great photographs, even if they are taken 100 years ago, and there's always something to learn. And like what you yourself said, Rob, a lot of things or almost everything has been done before. So yeah, pretty much good to study what have been done in the past.
Can I say a little short funny story about shadows? When I was still doing commercial work, I delivered some pictures for a client. This was still when I'm using film, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, the client saw the pictures and said, "But there are shadows in these pictures." And obviously, she was not really, didn't know what she was really saying, but it meant that she didn't like the pictures, obviously. But it was so funny because, without shadows, it's just like a blank wall like this.
Right. Oh my God. I remember showing my mom some pictures that I tried to be all creative, and she looked at them and she's like, "These are terrible. They're not clear. You can't see anything." I'm like, "Oh God. Okay,
Ouch.
Mom. I don't want to teach you about negative space and all of that. I'll try and be better next time or do better."
Yeah, I know the shadow thing that in design, there's negative space and there's positive space, and both are essential to create an image. So therefore, light and shadow are like negative space and positive space, and that both are essential. And it's the marriage of the two and how you get them to interact with each other to create an image, to deliver a message, to convey a feeling that is essential. And you have to study the history of photography and the masters in the past in order to do that, to see how it progressed through time with technology and with the development of new techniques and so forth. Just like when a painter starts to paint, they have to go back to the masters of the Renaissance and so forth and look at Art Deco and Stucco and so forth and the great masters before, because if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going.
Right. And that's one other thing I want to add that Brian touched on briefly was a lot of photography that I see, particularly on YouTube, when I'm trying to learn new techniques and stuff, you get these little nuggets here and there, but just to get like one coherent type of skill set down, you have to watch like 10 times as many videos, but you start to see everything looks the same. Everybody's doing the exact same thing. And when you look at the masters in photography, like someone in the comments mentioned Fan Ho, it's like, it's just amazing when you look at how powerful those images are and the connection that you feel and the story that you see from a single image. It's very, very powerful. And nothing I scroll through on Instagram ever matches what I've seen from just a few people I've started to study more recently. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I've made. But let me move on to something a little more modern. This was a really talked about a lot last year, but we've come a long way in AI in photography in just a year. I mean, it's amazing what can be done now. And there's always this controversy. And I didn't want to get into the legal controversy because none of us are lawyers, and I don't think we could really discuss that. But I do want to talk about what you think the potential or dangers are, the ups and downs of AI technology. And I'd like to start with you on this one, Peter, because I think you've embraced AI, and what's out there. So I think you have a very positive feeling, but you tell me how do you feel about AI in general, and where do you think it'll take us?
Well, first of all, being positive is yeah, in a way, because I think it's here anyways. I don't, it doesn't matter what you think. It's going to be here, and it's going to be disrupting the industry big time, because you already see that companies, for example, they are writing blog posts. They don't hire photographers to do kind of like images for their archives anymore. They use AI to make those images. And I see the same pattern what happened when digital cameras came. All of a sudden, everybody were photographers. But now the big thing here in AI is that it's text-based. And photographers are visually oriented people. But those who can write will make the best AI images. And that is scary for photographers. And the thing that happens next, in 2 months, we will see a full movie made totally with AI. That's my prediction of,
Wow.
putting pieces together. I might exaggerate a bit, but yeah, it's going to happen this year anyways. And that is the scary part for photographers. And if you are a professional photographer and you're young, get into AI. Without that, you will not have anything to do. It's in so many areas, it's totally going to be gone. But of course, if you're a hobbyist, doesn't affect that at all, of course. But is it good or bad? I don't really know, because I don't really care. It's going to happen anyway. So if you want to get into it, then do it. And I was actually planning on making a channel about AI images, but I didn't, because it's actually the time that I played it around. It doesn't give the same satisfaction as photography for me at all. It's fun to test, and the first things you get these weird, crazy things you can do, and like a polar bear skiing in the moon, and it's gonna be a fun photograph. But it's only fun for a little while. But what I have done is concentrate more on AI video, because that's what helps me a lot, and I've already made some pieces to clients that are totally AI-based videos for some small things, and that's going to be something that we will do more.
Wow. Yeah, I have to look into that for myself, for my own clients, or even my channel. God knows, just have an AI version of me that's more interesting.
Yeah, that's another thing that you could do. That, like a picture, you can already make a like what I have here, and then I would just have a photograph, and the AI will take care of the rest, the lip sync and everything, just clone my voice. Wow. And that's it. And that's going to be interesting. And of course, in YouTube, there is some controversy about it, and because of course the deep fakes and stuff like that. But we will have to see how that develops.
Wow. So I know you're embracing it, and you have this idea of, it's coming. So don't fight it. Don't worry about it. Try to embrace it, I guess, and take advantage of it. But, I definitely have seen it take away a lot of types of photography jobs, that you've talked about already, particularly like in advertising, a lot of, marketing in general, not product photography. Product photography, there's a lot of legal challenges there, but general marketing, getting your message out. You don't really need a photographer for that anymore. It's cheaper just to to generate something quickly online or on your laptop. So yeah, it's definitely taking away. I don't think it's going to affect us as photographers because we enjoy it as a craft, but definitely as an industry, it's definitely having an impact. And I don't know, Ben, you're the engineer. How do you feel about AI and everything, and how is it specific to the photography?
So my coworkers at work are terrified of it. They think the world's coming to an end. I'm not scared of it. To me, it's like digital, okay? When it came out, and I was a huge fan of film, and I wanted everything to stay film. I didn't want things to go digital, but they did anyways. And it's like, for the artist, this is a new type of paint that you can buy, and you can create new types of images with. It's just going to be another medium, and it won't completely replace the medium of photography, but it may like dominate in a lot of areas. It's just, that's kind of my opinion. I really don't have much of an opinion about it, and I actually have not honestly yet made a single AI image. I haven't done that yet.
Okay. I guess that's really another way to look at it is really it's just a different medium, right? Just like painting, photography, pencil, it's another medium that will have its own sort of followers and enthusiasts, and then photography will always be there.
It's like when I was in college doing drawing classes, we started out with smooth tone, and then we did cross thatch, and then we did stipple, and all of those things create images, but they do it very differently, but they're all art.
Right.
And I think AI can be AI is essentially it's taking text and it's addressing a massive database of images and creating an image from that database. And it's not truly AI in that the singularity would have happened by now if it really was truly AI. Yes, Robin. But yeah, so it's a database that you're addressing, and it uses mathematical formulas basically to figure out, what it is you're trying to create.
It'll be interesting when it crosses that threshold and starts creating things on its own outside of any database, right? Because like you said, right now it's just basically a fancy search engine.
Yeah. The AI word is a marketing term. People in marketing are terrible people. I know, I was in it, so I can say this. They take words and they abuse them. So that's kind of one of the other opinions that I have about AI, is that it's not really the right word, but it is something that's here and it's going to stay.
Okay. Anyone have anything else they want to add before I?
Yeah, I just tend to think that it's similar to what Ben's just been saying. It's another stream, and we've already been down these streams in various ways. And I think instead of being a challenge, it's just going to be something extra. We had this with photography with film cameras, and we still have film cameras. People still shoot film. It just became two streams. We then got video. Nobody was doing video, and until all of a sudden you got video, which was achievable, as you said. But not everybody who shoots video is going to shoot photographs, and vice versa. And I think you'll just get an AI-based stream go off, but there'll still be people who want traditional photographs.
Absolutely. So I like I like that idea that photography will still always be photography, and even more unique now, right? Now that AI is here, it's even more unique and more more interesting to some extent. That would be one way to look at it. I mean, I've used AI to generate backgrounds and things, which is kind of fun, but it's not quite the same as creating these straight out of camera images yourself, and
plus some of the thrill of taking photographs is actually setting up a background, setting up the lighting, and doing the work. That's part of what it is for me. The end product sometimes isn't what I'm specifically achieving. I get the fun out of setting something up in the first place to do.
Yeah, the process. the process, and that's why we love photography, right? Because God knows, my images suck, but I love the process. All right.
Thank you.
Let me.
I have something, just a quick one to add.
Yes.
For me, the way I see photography, there are two parts. I'm generalizing, of course, but there are two main parts. One is to document. So we are capturing memories. We see things as they are, and we just capture it with our camera. The other one is to create. A good example to demonstrate these differences of this to create and document is wedding photography. To document is like the actual wedding day, as you capture the exchange of vows or the ring exchange, the first kiss, the first dance, all these moments. You can't really generate with AI. You may ask the AI to generate for you, but they are not genuine. So people will always want these moments to be captured by real photographers. But there's the other part where you can just capture the faces of the bride and groom and you ask the AI to generate like a beautiful portrait in an exotic location, right? So the creating part, the AI may take over or they may dominate to some extent, whereas the documentation part, documentary photography, storytelling, or street photography, for example, these are the type of photographies where I think photographers or the traditional type of photography is still very relevant. You can't generate moments. It's not right. You can't fake it, right? Yes, the AI will create certain visually appealing photographs, but they are not telling the true story of what happened. So that's just, I think, something that I feel like as photographer, I don't feel threatened because I do wedding photography as well. I take event shots for my clients. I take stage photography for singers or performers on stage, a musical performance, mini concerts. And yeah, the AI can sort of create look-alikes, but they're not the same. You get what I mean? That's not what the performers want. They want documentation of what they perform on stage. And I feel, yeah, as a photographer, I feel quite safe looking at that area.
Okay, I also want to add something now that we are adding things. What AI, I'm sort of continuing where Robin left off. AI can't replace the experience in street photography, for example, the interaction with people and the fun. It's completely different thing to be tapping your computer inside or walking down the street, taking pictures of whatever you see there. It's two different, totally different things. I wouldn't be here in Australia taking pictures if I was into AI. I could be in my home country, Finland, tapping a computer, but this is much more fun.
Definitely. Again, it's about the process and the experience of photography is, really, to me, the biggest part of it for me is just the experience and doing it and the enjoyment, the shutter therapy, as Robin talks about all the time. There's nothing AI can never replace that human feeling or emotion and thrill of achievement or accomplishment that you get when you take your own picture, right? Okay. And that, I think that's really a good segue into my next question is and I'll just stay with you here, Maddie, on this. What do you think, doing this for 50 years now, like as long as I've been alive, what is the most important thing in photography?
Well, I think light is the one essential element. Without light, there are no pictures. And the photographer has to be able to observe and see what the light is doing. I think that's pretty much sums it up. I don't have anything more to add. Maybe the rest of you can add something if you want.
Okay. Definitely light is like you said, there's no photography without light, and the etymology or whatever it is, the root meaning of photography is painting with light, right? And we need to never forget that. How about Peter? How do you feel? What do you think? Because I think you have a lot of experience as well. What is the most important thing in photography?
I will take a little different path, and I would say that the act of photography, the actual time that you make the image, I think is the most important thing, because that's, of course, the end result is also important, but I think the photography act itself is the most important thing, because that gives us the joy, at least for me.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Maddie.
photography has the unique feature to be able to freeze a moment in time. No other media can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Related to what Peter said.
Right. Time machine is a common term I've heard associated with photography, right? It takes you back to a time that will never happen again. How about you, Ben? How do you feel? What's the most important thing?
So photography, I see it as, first off, you pre-visualize the image, then you record the image, and then you present it. And the only one that's a conjunction of those, either of those three, is the middle one, and that's actually recording it. That's, otherwise it would be some other type of medium, like you would paint it, or you would draw it, or you would AI it. But
Right.
yeah, pre-visualization, I think, is very important for inspiration and also motivation to go do it. And then afterwards, the presentation of the photography is kind of the gratification that you get for the work that you put into creating the image. And when we create an image, we write with light, essentially. We record the light. And I look at the light as, it's the exposure square is what I used to call it in college, because there was aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and then there was the light itself. And you can control the light. You can use strobes, or you can modify the scene to change the light, and and everything, like from start to finish of that process. All three of those steps are in some ways dependent upon light, because when you pre-visualize the image, you have to pre-visualize the light, and when you actually record it, of course, you need light to do it. And then when you present it, obviously, if you're going to print it, show it to somebody, it needs light as well. That's my opinion, for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're visualizing and seeing the image, in your head, right? Is very important.
And you should enjoy each of those steps. If you
Right.
find yourself not enjoying one of those steps, then something needs to change. And it doesn't necessarily, like, our photography equipment only affects that middle step. And so many times people find themselves not enjoying their photography, and they want to change systems or something like that. And really what it is the pre-visualization part is the part that they're not enjoying. Or maybe the presentation part of their images is the part that they're not enjoying. And then they think that they need to change gears or something like that. No, it's like, make sure that you're enjoying each of the steps, and they should be enjoyed the same amount.
Right. And this really ties back to something you said earlier about improving the workflow, right? And so you can definitely see the engineering part coming out of you. Everything has a certain order that needs to be done, right?
The gear should not get in the way of any of those three steps.
Right.
When the gear gets in the way, when it slows me down, when it confuses me or something like that, that's when the gear needs to change, because it, like, all, as much of my faculties as possible should be put into the creative process of creating the image in those three steps.
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense.
Okay. How about Brian and Robin? Anything you'd like to add? What is the most important thing in photography?
Brian, you go first.
Okay, Robin, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. if you are a professional photographer, you are shooting for a client, the most important thing in that photography is to make sure your client is happy. Right? If your client is happy, you get paid, they'll hire you again, then you get a stream of income as a paid photographer. If you are doing photography for fun, if you are a hobbyist or enthusiast, then the most important thing is just what Ben has said. And you have to enjoy photography, right? If you don't enjoy photography, then why are you doing photography? So that's all I have to add.
I think for me, the earliest memory I have of photography was my father had a twin lens reflex Kodak Brownie camera, which had a button on the side. You looked down through the top, you saw what was there, you saw a composition, and you pressed the button. Everything else was there done for you. But the fact is, that was the process of taking that photograph and the joy of going out and doing that. And then to see the end results, which in those days, you, of course, had to come back from the chemist or the drugstore or whatever, which could take a week to come back. Or you might not finish that film for another week or a fortnight. So it could be weeks later when you see it. But it's the connection of the time that you actually press that shutter and look down through the viewfinder to seeing the final result. And whether you're shooting professionally or you're shooting as a recreational thing, the tie between the two, as Ben's alluded to, is the important thing, because if you don't have fun taking photographs, even if you're doing it for a client, that's going to come through. It's part of the story itself. You're not going to get that spark come through. So I think having fun is the most important thing of the lot.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone's answers were just a little bit different than the other, but there was a common theme about enjoying photography and capturing that moment. Those are the most important things, right? And for me, it's always been about enjoying that moment. Of course, I enjoy photography. I have a passion for it, but and I just want to throw my 2 cents in, because I think this is important. The most important thing in photography is capturing those moments, and this kind of relates to what Maddie was saying, is a time machine, but capturing those important moments in your life and important people in your life. Your family, your pets, your hobbies outside of photography. What are the important things in your life? And I think that's one of the greatest things that photography has contributed to mankind in general, is that time machine effect, being able to go back and cherish things again, and have it with you always. And that's what's always been important to me in photography. But okay, just finally, and I know Maddie has to go in a few minutes, but I'll start with you, Maddie. What advice would you give yourself if you were to starting photography? Like, if you could go back in time, speaking of time travel, time machines, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself in photography?
Oh, that's a tough one, because the world was so different back then. But I would probably tell myself to shoot what I really like and enjoy, and do not care about the rest or what the others say. And there's another thing which is not really an advice for myself when I started out, but when I was doing my commercial work, I wish I had shot more personal work also during that time. But it was so hard at times, because there was so much work. And when you have a lot of work coming in, you don't want to turn down any jobs. You take in as much as you can, and you're happy, because it means also money coming in.
Right.
But that's what I would have done, or I would do differently if I was doing it again. I had a really, really fun as a commercial photographer. It was the best job I could imagine even today. But still, there are some things I would do differently, and one of those things would be to find time to shoot more personal work, because there was a long period of time I did not shoot. I shot hardly any personal work. I shot family pictures, vacation pictures, but nothing substantial, nothing real, so to speak.
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm an architectural guy, right? So I take pictures of buildings. It's and here in the US in 5 or 6 years they'll probably tear it down and put something else up. But yeah, definitely more time. Personal work is very good advice. Because even as a beginning photographer, you're not a professional. You're concentrating so much on just the techniques and the skill sets that you're not you're not really, I don't think, enjoying it on a personal level as much anymore, right? Sometimes even as a beginner, I think it's good advice. Forget about all the technical things and how to use the camera. Just go out and take pictures and enjoy it. Um, yeah, definitely go out and enjoy photography, either way, professionally or personally. Don't get hung up with work or with the technical things of a camera. How about you, Peter? What would you tell yourself if you could go back 100 years?
100 years. I'm not that old. Well, I have about the same answer as Matti, because that's the story of me too, that going out more to photograph your own project. I'm happy that I can do it now because I understand how the importance is. And actually, when you're getting old, you want to get some good photos too, that somebody might recognize them when I'm gone. So that's one part. But to be honest, yeah, going out more and do your own projects and do because
Yeah.
when you're doing commercial work, you do this kind of stuff that clients want you to do. Of course, you've chosen your genre, but still, it's kind of like the client that dictates what you're shooting. And at the same time, if you can do your own project, go ahead, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm certainly trying to do more of that myself. Is going out, but yeah, Anyway, how about you, Brian? What would you tell yourself if you go back?
Stop worrying so much what other people think about your output. Convince yourself that it's something you like, and also stop trying to follow the rules so tightly. We hear all these rules of thirds, and what you have to do, and they are great guidelines. But there's a saying which I use an awful lot whenever I'm starting to get stuck on things, and that's that rules are for the obedience of fools and the guidance of the wise. And I think if you work around that, use them as a guide. And I was too cut up in the early days, especially when I was doing work for clients, that you've got to do these things. They have to be in this particular order. They have to be this particular way. And I think as soon as I realized that I could actually relax a little bit and bring some of myself into it, my general photography level increased. Even after all these years, I don't consider myself a very good photographer. I was professional. I did what I did very well, but it was a narrow field. So creativity wise, I've always felt as a creative, I'm not so much good. I'm a technical photographer. But
Right.
I think just having the fun and the self-belief to say, do you know what, I'm going to try this and keep on trying it and take lots of photographs until you achieve what's good for you, and then present that, because that's then becomes your style.
Absolutely. Yeah, finding your style, finding yourself in photography, definitely is good advice. It's because a lot of people, I would say more than half the people that watch our channels or watch photography YouTube, they're interested in photography as a business, trying to make money from their photography. And they miss the point of capturing for themselves and discovering photography, so to speak. So I think, yeah, that's definitely good advice. And I Robin or Ben, would you like to add anything to that? Do you have any big advice or different things that you would tell yourself? We'll start with Ben there.
So now this is something I've kind of just learned in recent years, maybe like the last 5 or 6 years, and that's that try to pre-visualize what kind of impact that image will have 20 years from now. Because I often get out old photography, old photo books, photo albums that we have as a family, images that were taken 30 years ago. And as a kid, I hated being part of those images and so forth. But now that I look back at them, they're such treasured memories.
Yeah.
And I think like the most impactful and the most important part of photography to me is recording my kids, because I know that when I'm old and pushing a walker around, I'll be able to go back and look at those pictures and kind of relive those memories. And I'm looking forward to doing that. And that's
Yeah,
the reason
absolutely.
why I take pictures. And I wish early on in life I'd kind of figured that out a little bit faster, that it's about recording the moment so that you can kind of it's romanticism is what it is.
Yeah. Or, the most important thing in photography for me is, capturing those memories. And then, Robin, anything you would tell yourself if you go back?
Well, I was an engineer, so when I picked up the camera, it was an escape for me from engineering. But in my earlier days of photography, I still look at the whole process in a very technical way. Like, oh, I must get my camera settings right. I must put the camera on a tripod. I must have sharp and in focus images. And I worry so much about the technical aspects that I didn't realize that I was actually restricting my own growth in the artistic sense of photography. It took me some time to realize that there was something missing in my photographs, and that's the soul. I didn't put myself in my photographs. I wish I realized that earlier, like not to say that not to care about the technical aspects. The technical part of photography is important, the basics, the foundations, but I wish I didn't overthink, and I would pay more attention to developing my own voice and to really enjoy what I want to shoot. Like ask what am I doing with my photographs, the storytelling aspects. And I didn't really do street photography from the start. It was more like taking random photos of buildings and nice sceneries and nice food, and so yeah. And when I discovered street photography, this is when I really went, wow, there's a lot more that I can do with photography other than all the technical aspects, right? Your photo can be slightly blurred, but it can still look good. It doesn't have to be 100% technically perfect, but as long as you tell a story, then it still can be a really good photograph. So yeah, I wish I started out on the artistic journey a little bit earlier.
Okay. Yeah, I I would, basically reinforce that message as well. Is find your creative side, find your own style, and you'll enjoy photography even more than you would have just learning how to use your camera. Okay, Maddie. Let me just come to you. This will be the last question because I know you really need to go. Thanks for hanging out with us a little bit extra, but we'll just do a quick lightning round question. What's your favorite movie featuring photography or a photographer?
I excluded all documentaries here. I'm only counting in fiction and drama. I think my favorite is Blow Up, and the second best is The Killing Fields.
Yeah, Blow Up was one of my favorites. That'd have been my pick. How about you, Peter?
The Fur, an imaginary biography of Diana Arbus. That's a great movie. It's a very strange photographer, and the movie is a bit strange too.
The Fur.
The Fur.
Never heard of that one. How about you, Brian? What's your favorite movie?
I'm not the greatest film watcher, but if I was, I would go with both the ones that Maddie just said, Blow Up and Killing Fields. Fantastic.
Yes.
Oh. Ben, you have a favorite movie?
I have the most different answer of all of you. So my wife enjoys watching the show The Love Boat, and I enjoy seeing all the old cameras in it because there are so many classic cameras strapped around people's necks in that show, and you can tell right when the year the OM1 came out because you start seeing them everywhere. And so for me, it's kind of fun to like pick them out. That's kind of my favorite. So
No, that's definitely a good answer. I like that. Just seeing a show that would have, just give you a little surprise. Oh, look at that. an old Minolta or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. How about you, Robin?
1 hour photo starring Robin Williams. It's a horror movie. thriller movie.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it too. It's a nice one.
Very scary though.
Okay, one I'll add is Polaroid, I think was the name of it. But okay, and then just raise your hand. But do you still shoot film fairly regular? Like,
Robin.
okay, yeah, I still shoot film. All right, that's awesome. So this pretty much wraps up the discussion part of the stream, and I wanted to open up at this point to our viewers. If you'd like to ask any questions related to the topics we talked about today, go ahead and put them in the chat section now if they haven't answered already through the chat. I know you guys have been kind of busy with that, and I appreciate that. But Maddie, I don't want to keep you any longer because I know you have another engagement with the beach.
Well, let me explain. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning here in Melbourne right now, and tomorrow it's supposed to be a hot day. I want to go to the beach in the morning, so I thank you, everyone here and everyone in the audience. Thank you so much for joining in, and now I have to go and get a few hours sleep before I hit the beach. Thanks, everyone, and see you next time.
Enjoy the beach tomorrow. Send some
I will.
pictures. Send some pictures.
I'll send some pictures. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you.
Matti.
Okay, and I just want to apologize for the mic. I see comments time and time pop up that I need to turn mine off. I forget to do that sometimes, but I guess I'm not seeing any questions pop up right now. Did you guys see any from before?
Aren't we in just 2 days supposed to get like a major release of some products?
Ooh.
Are we gonna have to redo our webcast?
Well, let's throw those
No,
responsibility to the other group of streamers next Sunday.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. I mean, they're not actually out, or there's nothing official. I mean, the rumors are pretty solid at this point, but I'm always excited when anything new comes out, and there's but when that comes out, I'll give my 2 cents when it's more official and the pricings and the actual features in the camera. It's just not out yet. There's nothing really to talk about. We would just be speculating, There's a question here from John. What are your thoughts on global shutter for MFT? Who'd like to take this one?
I'll answer a couple things about it. So, a global shutter will always have a little more noise than a shutter that's red out line by line. Okay, so for those of you that are worried about noise, keep that in mind. That being said, though, I think that the future is global shutters. Like eventually, all the sensors will be global shutters, just because speed and computational photography and the ability to take a picture and rewind it with this pre-capture type stuff is essential. I think it's kind of a feature that everyone is going to look for in a camera, and a global shutter it really makes that a great feature. I know the OM1 has a very fast readout rate, and so yes, it can do it pretty good, but global shutter would be the next step. It's not a huge step forward though in technology though.
I think from my point of view, doing studio portrait work, it's a huge advantage because you're not having to use high-speed sync to get really fast shutter speeds anymore.
That's a good point.
That could really change what you're doing in studio portrait work, or even outdoor portrait work, when you want to try and get a nice wide aperture, but still be able to control the background without having to put filters and things in. So I think it could be a huge advantage.
Yeah, because they just started kind of working that out with film, and then digital came out, and then we couldn't do that anymore. And so everyone was trying to shoot ambient light. That could bring back strobe photography. I have a ton of strobes, and mine are Normans, and I love them, but I haven't used them in years because of digital.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing will be back to your earlier point, simplifying the workflow of using flash, right? You don't have to think about sync speed anymore. You just adjust, then the flash almost becomes like an LED light. You just adjust the brightness and you're done. And then another question is, I don't know, has anyone tried the Nikon ZF? That new retro camera? No?
I've
Yeah,
only had like a very brief moment with it, like nothing extensive.
I think retro is the future for a lot of cameras. I mean, that nostalgia.
But isn't it funny that we want cameras that look old but have to have the latest technology? I think it's kind of there is some. I like old-looking cameras. I like everybody else, but I think it's kind of funny in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we take sharp pictures and then add a grain filter,
Yeah.
right? But how about this is a good question here from Robert. Do you think Micro Four Thirds will ever have a sense of higher megapixel, like maybe 30 plus?
I already have one of those. I have a camera that's 44 megapixels, but it's a dedicated Astro camera, but it is a 4/3 camera. It's the industrial sensor, the IMX 492, I think is what it is. But you won't find it in any consumer cameras. I know Blackmagic at one time experimented putting the sensor in a camera to make a video camera for it. However, I think frame rate was too slow, and you had to use, contrast detect autofocus, and it was just too slow. It was a 8K. It's an 8K sensor. It's designed for video. It's used mostly for industrial stuff. There's a couple cameras that have that sensor in it, but yeah, there's already one out there.
I come back to what I said earlier though, about just competing on numbers, and I think some of the problem that we have, if we are just going to compete on megapixel count, then it comes back to what I was saying about losing the way marketing wise. And I've said this in an awful lot of my videos. I can get some fantastic shots out with my old 16 megapixel Micro Four Thirds cameras. 20 megapixels is fine. We're going up 25, and that's. But what do you really achieve by having the big numbers? Are you just basically chasing after the marketing tool, or are you really getting anything from your photography?
What I think is that the amount of megapixels is going to be obsolete because AI will blow up your images as big as you want. So
it's already happening with
yes, it is. Yeah, it is, but it's getting better and better all the time. So 20 or 10 will be enough. Then you just blow it by 4, you got 40, and nobody knows. So I think it's a one advantage that Micro Four Thirds might have, or not advantage, but it might be leveling up the what we call the image quality.
Okay, and this is a good segue to this question about editing software in general. Do you feel it's important as gear, or the denoising and sharpening capabilities we have these days? I think Peter, you're a lot into software and things. So what do you think?
Well, of course, software cannot replace a good photograph, so we have to have a good photograph in sense. But yes, it can in certain things if you really need ultra sharp images, for example, product photography or similar like that. And yes, it can help, and especially if you have an older camera, you can get really sharp results with that if you're using AI. Sharpening and also noise reduction is something that could make the image look better. Sometimes doing first the noise reduction, then you can lift up the shadows to get more dynamic range, so to speak. And I think, yeah, it plays a big role because image editing I think it's part of photography. It's always been, it used to be done or made in dark rooms. Now we make it in Lightroom. So it is still a big part. And I think editing skills will kind of like lift up your images, but you can't make.
Photographer going to Micro Four Thirds from Canon purely for the 12 to 100 lens with the M1.3. is it really as good as it gets for one lens to do it all setup with sharp results? So I guess the asking is this the best lens to do it all?
Everyone tells
what do
me
you
that
think,
lens is
Robin?
really sharp.
Yeah.
That's actually the next lens on my buying list, except I got cancer, and so I've kind of shelved buying stuff for a little while. But
yeah,
yeah,
it is one of the sharpest lenses available for macro four thirds at that range. It's extremely sharp, crazy at f4.
and the optical image stabilization, you know, it's an awesome looking lens. Really,
Weather
is.
sealed.
Yep. Like I could see myself like if I went out west, I would take 2 lenses, or maybe 3. The 714, that lens, and then maybe the 150 to 400, and that would cover everything.
Not 150 to 600.
That's not out yet.
Yeah, I've avoided the 12 to 100 because I kind of embrace the small size and weight of their primes and things. So I'm more comfortable just bringing smaller primes than a single lens.
Yeah, I use all primes as well. Same.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Camille, definitely if you're going to travel where you don't always know exactly what you're going to be shooting on any given moment, 12 to 100 is the most versatile and sharpest lens I think Olympus makes with the dual image stabilization capability. You can take it indoors without a tripod and do, museums or cathedrals, whatever, when you're traveling. So it's definitely a good choice. But I'm not a big traveler, as many of my viewers know. I don't like to travel. So, but okay. I think that's pretty much it for the question from the viewers. I don't think I missed anything. So we'll go ahead and just wrap things up, and we'll start with Brian. Any last words you'd like to share with our viewers here? Any messages or anything you'd like to say before we shut down here?
Yeah, well, first of all, from my point of view, first time I've been on one of these, and it's an absolute thrill to be on with people like yourselves, because you're the people who've been influencing me from your videos for a long time, and what I hope to do for the rest of the people out there. So, it really is an absolute thrill being on with you guys. But I think if I'm going to say anything, it's just got to say at the end of my videos to keep on taking your camera out and keep on having fun with your photos, because that's the essence of everything I do photography.
Okay. Thank you so much. And it's our privilege and honor to have you with us this year, Brian. And I look forward to having you back again next year. So thanks for being here today. And how about you, Ben? Any last words for everyone?
So I've been trying to revive this advice that we used to give back in the film days, and that was that you bought a mid-range or low-end camera and you got good lenses if you're building your system. And that's how you should think about it, because the magic of photography is in the optics. The camera is just a light box that records the image, and we've kind of lost that with digital. Everyone's kind of like obsessed with the camera and upgrading the camera every year sometimes. And yeah, concentrate on building a portfolio of good lenses, because that will expand your creativity in a lot of ways. And then if you're interested in getting into astrophotography, start with star trails, and the live comp features that are built into the Olympus cameras makes this the easiest of all the brands that are out there. And that's where you should start.
Absolutely.
Star trails, because it's super easy. You can just take your camera and just set it on the ground and let it do its thing for an hour. And star trails are cool. I mean, to this day, I get a kick out of doing them.
Awesome. How about you, Robin? Any last words for us?
I think as a photographer, before we take a photograph, the first thing that we do is we see things, right? And the one way for us to improve our photography is to improve the way we see things. I'm not saying change the way we see things. That's changing your personality or like be a different person. Don't do that. It's just like open up our minds to more possibilities and maybe realize that there may be beauty all around us. We just have to find the beauty in ordinary things. We don't really have to like try so hard, overthink, and do extraordinary things, or spend so much money, or do crazy things to get beautiful photographs. Sometimes the opportunity is just right in front of us. We just have to recognize it. We have to see it, and yeah, just it's the art of seeing. Improve the way we see things, then our photography can definitely be better. I guess that's all I want to say. And thanks so much, Rob, for having me. It's been really fun. I enjoyed myself here.
Well, this is great having you, as always, Robin. And of course, your advice is to find the beauty in things. And that's probably why you're always so happy, because you only see beautiful things anymore, right? How about you, Peter? Any last words for our viewers here?
Yeah, I think that a lot of good stuff been said already, but I think that photograph what you want and don't photograph what others expect you to photograph. So be true to yourself. So it's sad to see when rabbit hole of comparing each other photograph, because photography is not a competition, I think. And the same thing with gear. Don't buy something because they say so. Be true to yourself. I think that's the kind of like the gateway to having fun with photography. And thanks, Rob. Thanks, Rob, so much for arranging this again. And now there is still 153 watching. Now you all go and buy some coffee so that Rob can keep up with these live streams. And don't forget, next week there's another group of great photographers.
Well, it's a great honor and privilege for me to have you all here, and I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to be with me and our viewers here on a Sunday, right? Because I know a lot of you don't do anything on Sundays on YouTube, and so it's very very appreciated. And you guys have been awesome as always. I've certainly learned a lot of new things, and I'm very inspired by a lot of things you guys have shared with me today. So thank you so much. And just hang on for a couple minutes after I shut the stream down. I just want to have a few last words with you in private. But thank you everyone for being here today. In the chat section and watching us here online. I really appreciate all of the support that you've given me and others here, guests that we have over the years. We love you guys a lot. You mean so much to us as creators, that you guys are watching us and enjoying what we do, and sharing your experiences, like through Peter's Facebook, your images, and on Instagram, and the people that I follow. I love everyone's photography, and really hope that we can all continue to grow together in this wonderful field that we're in, this awesome hobby that we call photography. So I do have a stream next week. You'll see for that. I'll have some more fantastic guests with us. So I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Thanks again for being here today. And as always, I hope to see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.